Hello. Ooh. So, first of all, I've never been very good at public speaking, but I've always been very good at talking, which my family will always definitely attest to. So much so, in fact, that a colleague once told me, your lecturers at university are never going to get a bloody word in edgeways. So, there's that. We'll see how this goes. 5 years ago, when I was first diagnosed with body dysmorphic disorder, I felt, as many of you may in fact do now, and your loved ones too, hopeless, confused, maybe even a little bit ashamed. My father and I would scour the internet for sources of inspiration, trying to find messages of hope, but wherever we looked, all we found was simply people not looking back or similar. We assumed that given the nature of this illness, many people may simply recover and simply decide that they want to move forward. And while at the time that seemed so sad, I think the critical element is that people do recover, and that's what I want to focus on. I'm standing here now at nearly 25, having been released from BDD for almost 3 years. It wasn't easy, and there are still times when I experience blips and bad moments. But over time, I've learned to change my thinking, adapt my lifestyle, and embrace the help and love from those around me. My family, my friends, my doctors and therapists, all of them play a very significant role, and still do to this day. At the beginning, I felt like I was facing some big black void alone, but I was not alone. That never was the case, and it never will be. I think the hardest part of being unwell is accepting that it is in fact okay to be ill. It happens, but it's also very important to accept help. For me, it was essential. I want to go back to a previous word that I used, a powerful word that can sometimes feel so fleeting: hope. Many years ago, I felt that I had no hope. I felt that there was no end to my suffering and no way out of my despair. But I was wrong. I used to tell myself I needed to survive and then I could thrive. But why not do both? I've learned that perhaps the best way to live is just to take one moment at a time and try not to be a superhero 24 hours a day. Such simple things can be so important: rest, food, a warm shower, or as my close friend always says, tidying the sock drawer. In essence, there is no right or wrong way to live your life, no real race or competition. And sometimes when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I just try to remember the little things. I've learned a great deal from the advice and counsel of others over the years, from the rejuvenation that comes from being surrounded by nature to the importance of nurturing yourself and letting yourself be nurtured by others. Some of my greatest strengths during the hardest times come from laughter with friends, a conversation with my parents, or a hug from my sister. Sometimes a smile from a stranger does it as well. I think that if you open your heart to the world, you can receive so much back. I've always been that person who rambles with grandmothers in the biscuit aisle, and I highly encourage all of you to do the same. However, being so open can be a challenge for many of us, as mental illness is often treated as taboo. I think that the reason for this lies in the subjectivism. Humans don't always understand what they can't physically see, as the old adage goes. And they like hard evidence. And by its very nature, mental health problems are incredibly subjective. They're person to person, individual in every sense. Ultimately, these aren't something that can always be observed or treated with a plaster. Mental health takes effort. It takes time, and above all, it takes courage. I think mentally unwell people who face struggle and have faced struggle are amongst the bravest people I have ever met. They look at the world without childish eyes and understand how fragile things can be. Therefore, they embrace the world in a way that many other people may never personally experience, which I think can be a gift. So I encourage all of you to challenge the taboo, because these illnesses can happen to anyone. And I truly believe that those of us who struggle have a courage that, while not necessarily as widely accepted or understood as the courage of firefighters, soldiers, nurses, and doctors, is very much just as brave. We're all fighting our own personal battles and wars, not alone, but nonetheless not out necessarily in the open. I think that this takes a special kind of courage and strength which is incomparable. Now, some of you may wonder specifically what helped me in recovery from my BDD. I think my philosophy is to maintain an open mind, as so many others have said. So many of us struggle to say yes to therapy because we're afraid we'll be judged. We're afraid that we'll be potentially exposed to painful memories or situations. We may feel uncomfortable taking medications because they may feel so unnatural to us. To these people, I say, simply try, because for me, using simple different options proved useful. And I've effectively become a regular at Boots the Pharmacy, so I think it's great. In all seriousness, medication has and does help to lift me to a level of functionality that may have previously seemed unattainable. From this position, I've been able to access life-changing therapy, cognitive, behavioural and otherwise, wherein methods such as flooding, behaviour and response prevention, and exposure therapy have helped me to face my fears and learn that in reality they really are all in my head. A good friend once described her situation with a slightly wonky brain as being no different to a diabetic who requires insulin. And I believe it can be as simple as that if you let it. Sometimes we all need a little help in carrying ourselves, and there is absolutely no shame in that. So I say, do what works for you, but don't be afraid to try new things. There is always help out there in many different forms. So, in conclusion, I want to offer my thanks to the Foundation, to my family and friends for keeping me afloat, and to all of you for listening. To those of you with body dysmorphia, please take this message of hope and understand my sincerity when I say you are loved, you are not alone, and if I can recover, then you certainly can too. Thank you.